Joining us for this session. Okay, it's called Building Careers, Technical Career Growth in the Financial Sector. This session is particularly special because when we talk about the financial sectors, we're looking at hardcore finance or banking kind of roles, but technology is an enabler in this field, so we wanted to do something which actually focused on this area. We have with us Monal Sanghvi from Morgan Stanley. Okay, she's our moderator for today. And our panelists are Snigdha Singh from Morgan Stanley and Kalpana Rumba from American Express. All right, enjoy the session.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back from lunch. I hope you guys had a good lunch. And I hope that you can make this session as interactive as possible and ask all the questions that you may have. I'd like to introduce Kalpana Rumberg from American Express. She heads up the Global Risk Oversight Team from Gurgaon. Kalpana is a seasoned executive with more than 20 years of experience in the financial services industry, with her career spanning the US, Australia, and India. Prior to joining American Express, she has worked for many different distinguished institutions like Experian and Freddie Mac. Kalpana holds a graduate degree in operations research from Stanford University and recently completed her executive MBA from UC Berkeley.
Thank you. Thank you for the introduction.
And it gives me immense pleasure to introduce Snigdha Singh from Morgan Stanley. She's an executive director who leads the Equities Swaps Technology Group in Mumbai.
All right. Thank you, and it's a delight and a pleasure to be here.
So we have some prepared questions. The format of this session we thought would be 30 minutes of the prepared questions that we have to give you more of an insight into the careers of these two women here. And following that, we'll have 30 minutes of Q&A where you can ask anything. But feel free to step in and ask questions if you may wish to do so. But you will certainly be doing that at the end.
Room. My journey, actually, my career journey began a long time ago. I'm sure older than most people in this room. I left India in 1980, actually, to attend college in the US, and ended up spending 32 years in the US. So most of my career journey has been in the US. And late 2011, when my son graduated, I decided to wander off a little bit and went to Australia for 2 years before moving to India to join American Express and to be closer to my family. So when I left, I actually got my degree. Originally, my degree was, undergraduate degree was mathematics and computer science. And it was really the computer science that took me to the US. Okay, these were the days which you guys will not remember of key punch cards. Okay, this was a long time ago. And so I went to school, got my degree, and my first job, which has not been mentioned here because it was so long ago, was as a programmer. So I'm sure I've been in some of your shoes. And then from there, of course, I got my graduate degree and went on to join Bank of America and then various financial institutions. And now just, to circle to where I am now, which is American Express. And we'll probably talk a little bit more through the sessions about some of the details.
Thank you.
All right. Monal, you're making us sound very ancient. So as for me, I'm an electronics engineer, but working in computer technology, purely incidental. It so happened that the first company that came into my campus was for IT, and I sat and fortunately got through. So been in the IT industry for the last 17 years, and mostly into financial sector. So I was working for Citigroup earlier, and for the last 12 years with Morgan Stanley. I'm still a programmer, so I joined as a Java developer with Morgan Stanley into the equities trade processing area. And soon I realized that just being a technologist is not good enough. You need to have an eye for functional detail. You need to have the passion to deliver and to understand business. and that can take you far in your career. Just keeping it very brief today, I'm delivering global solution for the firm's equity swaps technology space, which is a highly bespoke techno-functional area.
Thank you. Thank you so much. This group here and the conference attendees here I would like to probably understand how different is your role in the financial industry versus any other roles that they've had in core technology companies. But to start with, I would like like both of you to answer this. What do you think is the importance of technology in finance?
Okay, so when as an investment bank, right, we call ourselves as a technology company, and we treated with a lot of cynicism, right? So investment banks are out there to make money, and where does IT come in, right? IT is thought at best a support function and not a core part of the organization. But on the contrary, and especially the ones who are working in the financial sector, you will disagree to it, right? So, Kalpana and I were talking yesterday, and we noticed if you look at these boards over here, there, you will see a lot of financial organizations, right? So technology and finance, there's a strong overlap. Taking up maybe a real-world example, so as you know, investment banks, right, like JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs, are very competitive. And each of one of us would try to strive for excellence, try to give better prices to client, gain more market shares, and so on. I suppose most of you would be familiar with how a stock market functions at a high level, how prices go up and down. So imagine if you are a sales trader working for a client, trying to buy, let's say, 500,000 shares of Tata Motors, for example. If you miss the market by even 100th of a second, the price may go up a little bit, maybe a paise or a few paise, right? But that could result in significant monetary loss to the client. And this is what we want to avoid, because technology gives the investment banks a competitive edge. So we are talking about latency, right? So before the turn of the century, we used to measure latency in seconds, like it takes few seconds to get an order executed. Today we are talking about microseconds. And to take the leap from a second to a microsecond, it needs a lot of technical innovations. So some of the simple things we would consider is what operating system are we using? Which programming language are we using? Is your code efficient? To something a little bit more complex, do I need to use software here, or can I use a hardware solution like FPGA, or can I use techniques like kernel bypassing? Or even at the network layer, do I need to use a copper wire to connect the two systems? Can I use fiber? Can I use microwave? If my exchange is in Bombay Stock Exchange at Fort, should I place my server there to avoid the WAN length and to have a faster processing? So these things are highly critical, and that's where technology plays a key role. Talking generally, if you look at current trends, right, like server virtualization, we are talking about cloud computing, distributed systems, Hadoop, object data store, mobile banking, iPads and tablets. All of this are being adopted at the financial sector in some way or another. And why? Because business is asking for it. Business is ready to invest money. So technology investment in a financial sector is humongous. It will not be an understatement to say that finance runs on technology. Without technology, none of these banks would survive. Before I pass on to Kalpana to chip in more, I'll just give you a quick fact, right? New York is the financial hub for the US, and you can even say it financial hub for the entire world. The financial organizations in New York City are the largest consumers of talent over there, right? So that just shows clearly how dependent these financial sectors are on technology. Kalpana?
So no, I completely agree with all the points that Signa has made, and from my perspective, I think I was doing a little bit of research on this because I don't know all the facts, and some of the facts were quite surprising even to me. So financial services sector is the biggest spender in technology. Okay, it's the biggest spender. So what does that really mean? And even in the short time that we've been sitting up here on stage, so American Express, I'm sure everyone is familiar with, we've had 650,000 card swipes. So each time you swipe a card, well, now you put it into a machine with the chip, but either way, so if you think about that, 650,000, okay, 240 yes-no decisions. Well, each of those generates a yes-no decision as well. So this is more on the approvals. So what, think about the amount of data. I think that's, a different point maybe that I want to touch on, which is the amount of information that this sector is generating does by necessity require immense technology. There is all the innovation that is in this space is really been driven by the financial services needs. Okay, so the amount of information management. So, big data, we're all hearing about big data. There's a huge emphasis on it right here at the conference this week. And in our company, so American Express did have the first big data lab. So machine learning, big data, it's all obviously all about technology. How can we make better decisions? How can we get better information security in what is a very regulated industry, right? So our industry being so regulated, there are even more demands than other industries in terms of the data security requirements, encryption, cryptology, all those types of things are really something that have been driven by the need in this space. So other than that, I think the technology in general, most companies, I know obviously American Express is quite large, do end up leveraging what would be considered best-in-class technology. So we are constantly researching. So in terms of the career within American Express or within financial services in general, there's a huge emphasis on technology. It's the backbone of our company. It's the way we connect across the globe, right? We've got 100 million customers. It's the way we keep connected. It's the way decisioning is made across the globe. Other than that, even in the marketing space. So think about technology with marketing, targeted offers that you all are getting. Redeeming, the coupon list redeeming. All that is, these are all innovations in the financial services space driven by technology. Okay? Even the way we work today, think about that. I mean, we are working with New York across the globe. It doesn't even matter where people are sitting today. Even just the video conference facilities. I mean, technology is underlying everything we do today and everything we touch. So I don't think we think of it as a separate thing. It's the backbone and the fundamental basis on which the company functions. Okay, and we have a huge presence in India, of course, to represent that need.
Thank you. Thank you so much. When we say financial services organizations, there are several different types of these companies that come to our mind. So you have retail banks, where now you're able to make transactions online, right? And we have two different perspectives here, where we have Snigdha from Morgan Stanley, which is an investment bank, and Kalpana from American Express, whose main business is credit card and payments, right? So what I would like to understand is, what's the difference in pursuing a technical career in these two industries, right, and in these two types of companies versus a product-based company whose goal is to deliver a product at the end of the day, right?
So I think from a technology perspective, I would think it's not very different. I'd say a product company creates a product, and some of the products could be for technical implementation or could be technical products. So we have some people from Cisco, if they're still there. I suppose their products will fall into that category. But probably they will be working on the same technology. The difference being that what we work on is solving a particular business requirement. So we work very closely with our end users. The challenges that we face could probably be different. So as I said, speed and performance are of utmost importance. We also deal with a huge amount of data. And this data analysis is needed so that traders can make the right decisions. So we would deal with data of the range of a few petabytes. A petabyte is like 1,000 terabytes. You can imagine the state of the data that we deal with. And over there, the traditional RDBMS systems wouldn't fit. So we'll use something like a Hadoop or something else, or the object data store to get analytics out of it. The other challenge would be time to market. So as I said, investment banks are very competitive, right? So there are clients asking for more services. There's also regulatory requirements coming our way. So we need to respond very quickly. So we are truly agile. I mean, not just we adopt the agile development methodology, we are agile in all respects. We have shorter SDLC. We turn over the code very quickly. For example, something that I worked on last month, it will be going to production soon. Personally, I do find it very gratifying to see what you worked on being used. You may get positive or negative feedback, and there are times when you get really negative feedback as well. But it's a good experience to work closely with the business and truly understand what difference you are making to their day job and their time at the workplace. In short, I say it's a very, very, very dynamic, the nature of the industry is very, very, very dynamic. Things keep changing, and that's also the fun part of it, because you feel challenged all through your stage of career.
So from my perspective, I agree. I don't see a huge difference either in terms of the career path itself. I guess one other point, maybe think about what's happening in this space in terms of going digital, right? So banking in general is becoming completely online, e-commerce. I mean, everything is just moving. And we certainly, our company and financial services in general is going through a fairly transformational phase in this journey. So with that, the need to have even more technology talent is just going to grow. The need for technology talent will always be there, and I think it's growing. So if you think about just even our journey, it began in 2009 with our use of social media, and then 2010, I think we launched a mobile app, and it just keeps going from there. So we have payments, processing payments. Okay, so now with global e-commerce, you're making a payment in India for something you're buying, anywhere in the world, right? So I was shocked, Macy's. I can buy Macy's products and they'll ship them to me here. So the payments processing business also, with all of these, new things that we all are facing, I think the need for technology is just growing. So in terms of a career, I would say that, put a lot of emphasis and focus when you're, of course, in your younger days, you have to put emphasis and focus on being a little more task-oriented. But as you develop, whether you're in a technology company or whether you're in a financial services company, at the end, it's the company's strategy that will drive the need for, what you will focus on. So for us, for example, we would use technology to make sure there's a good customer experience, right? So you have to focus on that. You would use technology to make sure that there's security, the security that we all need when we make a payment. So there's different aspects, and for each of these, as one grows and develops in your career, you would focus more on the business intelligence that you would get from data. So that aspect of it, I think, will be a field to watch and probably a growth area.
Thank you. Yeah, that's very insightful and gives us a flavor of what you do on a day-to-day basis in your daily jobs and what kind of careers you've had. Since this is still a celebration of women in computing, I must ask this, right? Why is diversity important for an organization like yours? And I speak about this from my experience as well, that we have the same gender ratios as any other technology companies out there and the same kind of problems. But why is it important in your respective organizations?
Okay. So I think diversity is a much used, overused word. And what it means today, I think, is quite different from what it meant when I started my career. Okay, so I would say 30 years ago, I heard the word diversity for the first time. And even American Express, I went back and looked, and it's been over 30 years since we introduced diversity into our terminology, okay? So what does diversity really mean? And I do want to take a moment to focus on that, because I think it is so important. And people, it just means different things to different people, to different companies perhaps, in different countries. And I've lived now in on three continents, and to me it seems to mean something a little different. So I'm going to speak more from my perspective, okay? And diversity, even for American Express, to me it means about attracting, hiring, developing, and then maintaining diverse talent. Okay, so it's diversity of talent. Does that mean women? Does that mean different cultures? To me, it's all of it. Okay, and you heard yesterday, some of the speakers mentioned that, diversity today is about, it's a business driver. I just, as you heard, just finished my MBA recently. We had a whole module on gender bias. And there were all kinds of statistics. This was sitting in California. And they talked about different countries. This was international. So gender is still a gap, no doubt. But so are other things, right? So there is less representation of female leadership at the senior most levels in companies. We know that. So I think we have to all ask ourselves the questions as to why, and we'll get into that, at some later point. So if we look at, to me, then if we say diversity, one thing that I, as a hiring manager, want to see is a diverse set of candidates being presented to me. That's what diversity means to me, to our company. Then when it comes to hiring, we are a meritocracy. I'm not going to give a woman the job just because she's a female. So we have gotten away, that's what I mean, 30 years ago, even 10 years ago, 15 years ago, it was about some sort of a quota we had to fill. Thankfully, we've gotten away from that. I mean, how many of us in this room want to be hired just because we're female, right? I want to be hired because I'm the best person for the job. And that is really something that I promote. I want all of us to, that means we have to step up. If there are less women at senior levels, what can each of you do to make a difference? Each of us has to step up. And what does that really mean? And to me, again, that means a lot of things that you have to do in your career. And we'll, again, I know that we'll get into some more of the details of what each of you can do to actually promote your development and your visibility within a company to grow into those leadership roles. So don't, use diversity as the launch pad or the step up that you might need. And I hope no one thinks that way anymore, because it's not like that. Companies don't do that anymore. So that's and we have a lot of initiatives. If anyone's interested, I won't get into it now, but we have a lot of initiatives at American Express. I'm sure all big companies do, that are really focused on promoting diversity. And again, I do mean all kinds of diversity. And in particular, the focus that we're all here. We're at the Grace Hopper Conference. I don't know how many men there are, which is wonderful. But we need a lot more, right? So we do see, there's a lot of us here. There's a lot of things that each of us can do to improve, again, our career, the career that we have, whether it's in technology, wherever you end up, and whatever path you choose. This is something that will be important. So I will just hand over to Snigdha and just say one last thing. I'm reading this book right now that's called Global Dexterity. Global Dexterity. Global Dexterity also talks about cultural differences and the fact that a lot of us are working for multinational companies, and how can you be more open to different cultures. So to me, just think about all these things, and then maybe if you have questions, you feel free to come ask. Okay?
Diversity, I suppose we all agree that diversity is not about gender. We're talking about thought diversity, and that can come in different shapes and forms. So cultural diversity or hiring people with diverse skill set or diverse experience level. And the reason is because then you get a diverse viewpoints and you can collectively come up with a better solution. I truly believe that diversity breeds creativity. Most of the creative teams have people coming from very different backgrounds and all coming together, pouring in their best ideas and coming up with something truly innovative. The other advantage of having a diverse work environment is there would be less chances of discrimination because there will be more understanding of cultural and biases will be less, there will be less prejudice. So that makes a wholesome, better workplace to work with. So for those reasons, diversity is the key, but yeah, let's just not talk about just gender diversity and let's be more open.
Thanks. Inspiring as your journey has been so far, I think there may be people in the audience here who would like to know what they should be looking out for if they are planning to build a career in this industry. So any key learnings or any kind of advice that you'd like to share on, or something that you should be actively looking for in case you want to pursue a career in these industries?
I will think you should constantly try to acquire new skill set, try to evolve yourself, keep thinking what next you can do. If you are in a situation or in a project for very long and you think you can do more, then do actively seek out mobility. Talking from my personal experience, I would say I was in a sweet spot. I was a subject matter expert and for a long time, and then I felt that maybe I should get out of my comfort zone and try something new, very different. Fortunately, I got a very good opportunity. It was a different set of technology, different division of the firm, and something challenging, and I went for it. Now, the journey wasn't smooth at all. It wasn't all cookies and cream. I was struggling. I was having second and third and fourth thoughts, and I wanted to go back to my previous group. And my manager was like saying no. And he was supportive in the sense he said that if I continue, I will establish. It took a long time. But finally, I got settled and comfortable. And if I look at that experience in hindsight, I feel that my learning during that period was accelerated. I learned the most. Not just technology, I learned to work with people, difficult people, because it was a tough group. And it was a very wholesome experience. At the end, I felt it was truly worth it. The other thing is you need to learn driving. So your career is something that you need to drive. Your mentors, managers can provide directions, but you need to steer, you need to drive, you need to take it forward. So ask. Find out what your aspirations are, ask, make goals, and try to achieve them.
I think that's an excellent point, and it reminds me of when I joined American Express a year and a half ago, and I had this young man walk into my office. He'd been with American Express for maybe not even 2 years yet. And he said to me, I want to move to the US. So can you help me move? I said, okay, what is it that you want to do? And he said, oh, no, just send an email to everyone you know there and tell them that I'm looking for a job. And so, this point about being the what I call the CEO of your career, I cannot overemphasize that. And we do end up, a lot of us, myself included, drifting in the early years of your career. And frankly, in the early years of your career, you should really be putting your head down and just building skills, right? And as you get a little more into the skills that you have developed, do put your head up. And I'm not talking about very far in, maybe a couple of years into your career. Put your head up and start thinking. Start creating a plan. I wish I had done that. I just kind of bounced around, from job to job sometimes because there were other drivers of the changes as I was, going through my career. My husband was moving for this reason or that reason. We had kids, so there's a lot of drivers that were not in my control. And when it did become in my control and I started really, taking charge of my career, wow, it makes such a big difference. You feel more fulfilled because it's like, okay, now I'm seeking something out, I'm achieving it, and then I'm going on, perhaps to the next step or whatever it is I want to do. And it is about reinventing yourself. So you can't have a career goal, that 15 years ago, that's the same as today. It's going to change. And it's not changing just as you move up. It's changing as you learn more about who you are as a person. What excites you? What is it that, makes you want to get up, go into the office and really do and deliver? There is one other point I'll make, which is, at some point in your life, you will have to make some choices, which is, do you want to continue to be a specialist and build, those technical skills, or do you want to become a little more of a generalist and start moving perhaps on more of a leadership track? So my, at least advice to a lot of the young folks in this room is give yourself a broad range of experiences when you're young. So then you do have, something to think about and plan your career. Okay?
Thank you. Thank you so much. I think in the interest of time, I'm going to open it up to questions. We do have some more prepared ones, but I think, if the audience would like to ask a question at this point, we're open. Yeah. Just hold on.
I want to ask a question. You mentioned about your career, your years of experience. So probably your year of experience is probably more than some of the young ladies sitting here. So looking back, you as a woman working during those years. Mm-hmm. Now, when we have not much, but we have a diversity, cliche to in most of the organizations. So I would want to know what is the change, and also what you feel that it would take this to the next level. Now, the diversity is now everyone is talking about diversity. You said that before, when you were working, when you were quite young, diversity was not that talk of the town. So, and to take it to the next level, what is your thought is what I want to understand.
So good question. I think that, all of us being, most of us in this room are Indian, right? So some of the social conditioning was hard for me. When I had my daughter in 1990, there was a lot of pressure, not just, I'm sitting in DC, not just from my now ex-husband, he's American, mind you, he's American still, to quit my job, pressure from the family back home to quit my job. There were questions like, do you need to work? Is your husband not earning enough? So I'm saying just don't allow some of the social conditioning that a lot of us have had, and I'm hoping that you guys have different conditioning than I've had. That was a big barrier, and I do think that we as women are our own worst enemies. We hold ourselves back. It's easy to say, diversity and people aren't hiring, but you know what? If you speak up, so my biggest tip to you today is speak up. If you don't ask, you will not get anything. So if you learn to speak up and go in prepared, don't come in like that guy did to my office and say, help me. Go in prepared, know what you like to do, know what you potentially might want to do. One guy actually came in, and this was also, someone young who, with a PowerPoint. Now he was the other extreme, but I'm saying that you should have some thoughts. If you go in, with absolutely a blank slate, then I don't think it works as well. So I'm saying speak up, I'm saying own your career, I'm saying try and not allow social pressures to dictate what you should do. Let your own heart speak to you. If you want to be home with your kids, be home. If you don't. We talk about work-life balance and all these things. Honestly, there is no such thing. To me, it's about work-life integration. How do you keep what is a priority at that point in your life top of mind? So when my kids were young, they were top of mind. So we started our own business. We had a management consulting practice, which gave me a lot of flexibility. So plan your life around what you may have that is dictating, the needs from you for your time. Just use that and build it into your career is what my recommendation is. so that you can achieve a balance of what you want at that point in your life. And that will keep changing. Sure.
We have one more.
Hi, my name is Shreya. I'm actually an undergrad student here. So, well, from a very generic perspective, what would be like a student who's going to be employed like in a couple of years, venturing into the financial sector? Should they have a different perspective or like an economic or business acumen as such? Or is that not necessary to go into the banking and financial sector?
Well, we do look at people who have good analytical skills. This is a generic thing, nothing to do with technology or a language skill. But what is most important is whether you're keen to learn finance. Because you just can't be a technologist and work only thinking about Java and Oracle and Sybase and Unix, right? That's not enough. You need to see what you're doing, how is it that going to help the end user. As long as there's willingness to learn business, it's there for you, and a passion to success. And it is a competitive space, right? So you need, I mean, it's a demanding area, so you need to be flexible, try to understand business, and have the, what do you call it, passion to succeed, and you'll be successful.
One more question. I think now a couple of years we're all very, very focused on feminism, equality, where does it end, where does it start, what is equal enough? So were there any experiences where you felt like being a woman was actually a disadvantage at all? Like, because I've asked my mom this and she says, I'm an advocate of feminism, whereas she thinks it's like not necessary. She thinks, why? I've worked for 20 years and I saw no difference. So do you think there is or there isn't any difference at all?
Okay. I have a sister, so we are just two sisters. So growing up, I never felt any sort of discrimination. But I've seen discrimination, and they are very subtle sort of discrimination. For example, and I was telling it to a colleague of mine who's sitting behind, a men colleague. When you go for an HR interview, they sort of ask you, how will you manage work and home? Like, you never ask this question to my male colleague. It's none of your business. Why are you asking me, right? So, and then you have to give an answer. You have to make up an answer. Oh, I've got a very good support system at home, right? Kalpana, being in the US, married to American, I would expect him to understand that work is important. So when I have a kid, and I have a school-going kid, he's like 13 years old, my mother was like, why don't you quit? Or why don't you do something lighter? And I was like, how can you think like that? I mean, ultimately, she's the one who's supporting, and that's why I'm at work, and I do have a supportive husband. But the general expectation is that a woman should take care somehow. It's women's primary responsibility to grow a child, unfortunately. Now, there are men who are emancipated and encouraging, but his school, if my son's name is Ishan, if at school is a problem, they call me. They have my husband's number, they don't call him. They call me all the time. And I have to tell you, I'm traveling, why didn't you call the other number? And say, but you are his mother. Yeah. So they are levels
exactly,
of
like my father used to have to come to my PTAs because my mom would refuse to. She's like, I have a meeting. So
yeah. I don't know what it would take. But they are. But in general, I think overall the work on organization is supportive, right? So it helps to have a supportive network, both at home, at workplace, and it's manageable. I guess most of you, if you are married, would have kids, and you're still working, right? So hats off to such women, right? We still manage to work. Yeah.
We have a few more questions. Time for.
So we have spoken about all the digitization and getting sophisticated mobile apps and softwares getting into newest technologies, right? However, we move forward, we still have legacy application in all the financial sectors, all the technical, banks, or American Express or Morgan Stanley. So what is the percentage of efforts in terms of investments or time or resources that you would like to invest in moving away from the legacy technology applications to the newer technologies, and what are the top variables that come into play when you do the decision making?
Okay, so we do have lots of legacy software, right? We have stuff in mainframe, COBOL, and all that. C++ application. Now, I wouldn't call C++ legacy. Some people may find that very offensive, but still, they are C++ applications. And they are there because they're doing an important business function, so you just can't decommission. Obviously, as in investment banking technologies, they keep evolving, right? The kind of scale we were dealing with like 10 years back versus now is very different. So we have to constantly reinvent ourselves and focus on newer infrastructure, newer applications. So your question, how much time do we spend on old versus new? So the strategy is to reinvent and keep reinventing, but at the same time, we need to keep the legacy systems up until they get fully decommissioned. So we've got several decommission projects going all over. I wouldn't say we are very good at that, but we do strive for it. And we measure it very frequently to see how well we are doing, and we look at clever and smarter ways to move away from old and embrace change and something new, right? But as I speak, I work on legacy, I work on new, so yeah.
Yeah, and I would agree. I think that it's a big pain point for every company I know. Any company who's been around. So the newer institutions have that advantage because they can build with all those learnings. But every company has that, and you're absolutely right. It's a matter of business need. But companies, a lot of companies, and I've been at 2 where this has happened, where we will build data again. Data has changed. The way we think about data, the amount of data, so you have to move. It's almost like forced move. You have no choice because the old platforms cannot sustain. So some of it's forced on us, and some of it is, again, we tend to put off things that end up not being front and center and big priority because they're working, right? As long as things are working and people are getting business results, those things tend to get a little more pushed aside for things where we're forced to make the change. But it is an issue. And I can't say how much time you would spend
But
on
moving
one
from
versus the
legacy
other,
systems
so
to newer systems is an innovation in itself as
that's
well,
true.
right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
The innovation is so rapid these days. Even if you think of adapting it, it swiftly changes. So that's also a challenge or a pain area.
Exactly, it is a challenge. Because the systems can't scale up with the new volume, the technology has changed, and you keep reinventing, keep adopting, yeah.
The good news is it helps each of you. Now we all have to readapt and rethink and reinvent ourselves to adjust to all those changes. So it keeps us all hopefully relevant because you're forced to do that.
What are your thoughts on cyberfraud? That's the thing
Yeah.
going for all the financial sectors.
Obviously also a pretty overwhelming issue for, I think, most financial services companies. So we obviously have a whole fraud team, and that's the team where we actually put a lot of energy and focus into using the latest technologies. In that space, it's the most important to be relevant, because the fraudsters are literally waiting and finding different ways to break in. Cyber fraud, I don't know enough about to sound intelligent, so I don't know if there's extra stuff that needs to be done, which I know and this is where some of the technology companies really have the advantage, right? So a company like ours, we would buy products that would help improve or reduce the chances of there being, cyber break-ins into our systems. But honestly, I couldn't tell you more than that. I don't know if you have anything.
We have been advised not to talk about what our firms are doing and keep the session generic. But you are free to stop by our booth, and we can talk at length at cybersecurity, because it is a threat, and all iBanks are sort of investing into it. Yeah.
I think there was one question at the back.
Hi. I'm basically from a technology background. I'm a developer, but being in a finance domain for past 8 years or so, I've gained finance knowledge. But then now I see the more and more I gain finance knowledge, it's easier and interesting for me to code and from my team as well. But it is very difficult to get that knowledge. If I want to learn Java or any tool, a lot of trainings, books, anything is available even online. But if I want to gain finance knowledge, it's not that easy. It's like it has to run in your blood or something like that. I don't know how to get that. Am I not seeking enough, or is it true? Or at this moment, I don't know if I can enroll myself in a college to gain that knowledge. That will be very difficult for me. So please advise. Or how did you achieve that?
You have a similar question?
Background, I find it the same way. I tried into coding, but I found that's again a difficult area.
Okay, yeah, I totally agree with you. So, even though there's like tons of literature on finance on the net, but each organization runs differently and their interpretation of it would be different. So the best way to learn finance is by talking to people. So talk to traders, talk to operations, talk to controllers, talk to your end users. And for that, build relationship so that they can spend, because they're all busy people, so they can spend time with you and explain. It's unlike technology where you can just buy a book and read. It doesn't work that way. You need to understand why a firm does it in a certain way. Like I moved firms, and I can see their interpretation of something that I was working on versus the current organization I'm working on. Their interpretation is totally different. So I had to unlearn what I learned, because I used to keep saying, we used to do it this way in my previous organization, and people used to get like irritated by hearing that because they think they're doing it the best way, which probably they are. So the only way to learn is to talk to people, and specifically talk to people on the business side, and for that build relationships and network.
Thank you very much.
Did you join the financial industry with any business background?
No, absolutely not.
There you
I
go.
didn't even know how trading works, and I had no idea. And patiently, with time and a lot of investment, I do know a little bit better now. But obviously, there's so much to learn. It's a changing environment, and it's interesting. I like it so far.
So one little tip from me is start top down. Think on a very, very high level. I don't know what company you said you work for, but so you're with JP Morgan. So think about what your business is, who your customers are, and think about it from that aspect. And then, so one of my first jobs, and you know, it's true that every company you move to, there will be some different angle. But at the end of the day, it's all about who your customers are and the life cycle of the relationship with that customer. And that will help your understanding from a top-down level.
Good afternoon, and thank you for the session. My question is actually the other in terms of what she said. Are you seeing a trend of a lot of business people, functional people, end users, jumping on the technology side and becoming leaders in that? Is that a trend that you're seeing as we are evolving?
So when I hire today, everybody has to have some coding background. I'm hiring people who are analysts. Okay, so these are people with degrees in statistics, mathematics, and some engineering-related discipline. But if they don't know how to program, I will not hire them today. So the world has changed, and I think just what we're talking about, technology playing such a critical role in our organization. So if you understand the math and the statistics, but you can't code the model that you have using some kind of technology, then you're not, it doesn't help. It doesn't help. So yes, the world has changed. So I think it's important to have both. So I wouldn't focus solely on one or the other. At the end of the day, the business drivers are there, and you should understand what those are.
And can I have your opinion also, Shen?
Okay, so your question was, do you see people from business coming into technology and leading it? I don't see it that often, because it is a highly technical area. A technologist can understand business function. The reverse is not true unless a person comes from a technology background. So it would be hard for someone who doesn't have a background to lead, to be a CTO or a CIO of an investment bank, because you do need to understand technology. And in fact, on the other hand, the business, I mean, a lot of traders that I deal with, they have technology degree. I mean, when I was working on Windows XP and they used to say, well, this application doesn't work on Windows 7, I said, I don't have Windows 7. They had, and like, okay, they're always like trying to get the latest and the greatest, and with technology is like one step behind that way. So everyone nowadays is technology savvy in general, but unless you have a sound understanding of it, it will be difficult to be in a leader position.
Okay, thank you. I guess I must be an exception then, but fair enough. Thank you.
I have a question for Kalpana. So you mentioned like work experience in art.
Yeah, no, I actually have, my background is mathematics and operations research, which is more statistics. And so at that point, because I had the computer science as well, it has certainly really enhanced my ability to understand that side of the need we have in our career. So in terms of my exec MBA, it was more a personal thing. What it has added value really is, it's given structure to a lot of things that I have already been doing. Did I learn anything new? Yes, I think I did. I learned, so I went to UC Berkeley and their focus is innovation. And they gave structure to innovation. How do you innovate? There's a process that they've come up with, and it was actually very, very enlightening to hear. And these are people who are in industry, who have expertise, who were teaching us. So it was an enriching experience. Will it add value to my career? Not sure. It was personal satisfaction. Thank you.
Okay, we're out of time. No more questions. This is what Charu says. All right. Okay, thank you everyone for coming out in such large numbers and attending this session. And thank you so much, Kalpana and Snigdha, for your insights. Those were truly valuable.
Well, thank you. Absolutely pleasure to be here and to interact. Really enjoyed the experience. Thank you.
Yes, so did I. Thank you so much. Great questions, guys.
Okay, thank you so much, both Kalpana and Snigdha, for attending it together, making it together from American Express and Morgan Stanley. So this is a big of small memento from ABI for both of you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
So I work for IBM, and I'm a part of the advisory committee from ABI. Been associated with ABI for the last 6 years. And it was just pleasure listening to both of your experience here. Thank you so much.